So what is generally required for compliance? This is given in Section 6 and Figure 1. Generally speaking, what the standard requires is a water management program for the building. Section 6 and Figure 1 describe the 7 principles fundamental to an effective water management program. These 7 principles may look familiar to those of you who are also familiar with environmental source disease protection in food safety, in pharmaceutical production, in many, many other industrial applications and retail applications where environmental disease protection is necessary. You may recognize failure mode effects analysis principles here, or HACCP principles, hazard analysis critical control point. You may recognize these principles as fundamental to the water safety plan that is promulgated by the World Health Organization. All these principles are the same. So it's a matter of communicating the principles in a way that everyone can understand. In ASHRAE 188, the principles are listed like this, 1 through 7, and these are required for an effective water management program for all buildings. Analyze the hazards, determine control locations, set control limits. The 4th principle is monitor control limits, and a method and a frequency of monitoring is required. Establish corrective actions, confirm implementation as designed, and document and maintain records. So a graphical representation of that is given in the standard as Figure 1. It's kind of a table-like figure, and we just redrew it here in a kind of just a different format to make it sort of easier to look at. And the 7 principles that I just lined out really can be organized in this way as they are in Figure 1 of the standard. So in order to establish a water management program, the first thing to do is establish a team, a water management team, or a program team, it's called in the standard. And these persons are identified as responsible for the program, its development, and its implementation. The team then describes the way water is processed in the building. And this is a very important aspect of the team activity. It's the first thing that the team does. It describes the way water is processed in the building. And that description is to be rendered into process flow diagrams. I won't give details on what they look like now because I'm just giving a tour of the standard, but you will want to understand what a process flow diagram is supposed to be and also what it's not, because sometimes people make them much more difficult and more complex than they need to be. But it's a critical part of managing the water in a building, and it's the second step in this 7-step process for developing a water management program. Third is to analyze building water systems to evaluate where hazardous conditions may occur in the water system and determine where control measures can be applied. Then control measures are established. Determine locations where control measures must be applied and establish control limits. So this is where the team determines what hazard control additionally is necessary. Now, sometimes the teams will determine that no additional hazard control is necessary. And that has to be done on a site-by-site basis because the answer will be different for every building. Then monitoring and corrective actions are required. So procedures must be established for monitoring whether control measures are operating within established limits, and if not, corrective actions must be taken. The 6th principle is confirmation, and that's establishing that the program is being implemented as designed, that's verification, and that the program effectively controls the hazardous conditions throughout the building water system, and that's validation. Lastly, documentation is required, and this is, of course, critical to a successful water management program, and this is about defensibly confirming that the program was implemented and that the program did work.